أسعد الله مساءكم وأهلا بكم في محاضرة هذا المساء، وهي بعنوان Artificial Intelligence in Psychiatry. يقدمها الأستاذ المعروف الدكتور نزار أمين من السليمانية في العراق. تفضل دكتور نزار.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور وليد. Good evening, colleagues. Thank you for attending this session. Really, the subject that I'm going to talk about is very popular nowadays. You can hardly find a place or a specialty where this subject is not a matter for discussion. For example, this morning I heard from one of the media centers that the actresses, writers, and scenarists in Hollywood are on strike. One of their demands is to remove the effect of artificial intelligence because they are going to be out of business because of that. Let's move. Yes, these are the subjects that I'm going to talk about today. I will talk about the introduction. I will give you the Western perspective about the subject, then the Indian experience as an example of the Eastern perspective. Then I'll talk about a subject which is even more modern than artificial intelligence, which is artificial wisdom. If there is time, I'll talk about digital gaming interventions in psychiatry. And another new subject is precision psychiatry and some special issues, as well as a few slides about geriatrics and what is the future of the subject. So, of course, now the definition of artificial intelligence was done in 1950 by Turing, and it says it is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. And of course, you can hardly find, as I said, a place where artificial intelligence is not an issue. Among them is medicine, but unfortunately, psychiatry is not running with the same pace as other branches of medicine. Of course, all of us as practitioners, we would like our services to be less expensive, less time-consuming, precise, scalable, and accessible. This is the wish of every practitioner. Unfortunately, the mental health services are different in the world and mostly are in large cities, and people in rural areas, especially villages or small towns, cannot access these, let's say, tertiary services, psychiatric services. And of course, the number of the mental health workers are different in different places, and the number is not enough to cater for all the needs of people in the whole world. For that reason, this technology of artificial intelligence is spreading very quickly, and we think that in a few years' time, you can hardly find a person who has no access to smartphones. Of course, another thing is the pandemic, the COVID-19, really pushed the whole subject forward. And there are many technologies nowadays to help people access services. And of course, even scientific discussions like the one that we are participating in. And of course, we are all grateful to Dr. WALID SARHAN for his this Zoom platform, which has been going on for over 3 years now. Now, the Western perspective, I've chosen this John Torres from World Psychiatry, which is a very high impact factor journal. So I will mention the whole Western perspective from this paper. And I'll talk about the tools and technologies that are used in artificial intelligence. Among them, of course, are smartphones. And by smartphones, we have the following services: capturing longitudinal data for diagnosis and monitoring, analyzing these data, and of course, offering interventions for clinical care, peer support, etc. of course, there's sensor data and digital phenotyping by the smartphones. And it seems that this process is feasible with promising results, even for severe mental illness such as schizophrenia. And according to this author and his group, it doesn't elicit adverse effects, even in suicidal thoughts or on suicidal thoughts. Personally, I take issues with this approach. I think it has an effect. And if you like, at the end of the presentation, we can discuss that. I personally think that it has an effect. Right. Another thing is that so far, we are only scratching the surface of advanced smartphone capabilities. The smartphones have many other capabilities that we haven't reached until now. It is useful for cognitive and behavioral therapies to offer patients on demands. In this case, this is a closed-loop intervention, and I don't think it needs internet services. The other thing is social media. Of course, it has both positive and negative interactions with social media. And I apologize for this picture at the background, because this picture was taken while we had Twitter. Now we have X. So I apologize for that. Another thing is that this author, Ashbrenner et al., they think that the absolute screen time or exposure itself is not strongly associated with adverse mental consequences. And also it is the quality of screen time interaction which is important than the quantity. However, during the COVID-19, as you know, it helped people a lot, especially during the social isolation. And it worked a lot on people who were isolated and lonely. And our colleagues who are with us for a long time during this platform, we all remember one of the lectures we spoke about the effects of loneliness on the mental health of the people. So it was really helpful in that case. Now, social media have red flags for people who intend to self-harm or for suicide, and this is a good thing. And also, it is useful to detect a worsening of mental health symptoms. In artificial intelligence, there are two terms that are going to be repeated many times during my presentation. The first one is NLP, or natural language processing, and the second one is ML, or machine learning, and of course the algorithms also. All these are technical terms for artificial intelligence. Now, social media combined with NLP methods, they offer practical means to understand population-level mental health trends. Another thing is, in social media, we have voice. And by this voice recognition, we can analyze the emotional recognition of people by that. At the same time, it is useful to give psychological therapies. However, this is very important to know that it has the risk of disinformation, because not everything in social media is depending on references and it is correct. However, sometimes there are misinformation. At the same time, we have stigma, because sometimes people will recognize the person. The second thing is very, very popular nowadays, called chatbots. And ChatGPT is one of them. All of you use this application nowadays. Now, this is useful. It leads to interaction between a human and a robot, but it's an automated robot. Results or research suggests that digital therapeutic alliance might develop as a result of the interaction between those two sides, yourself and the digital technology. And we should know that some people feel more comfortable when they are interacting with anonymously with a chatbot rather than talking to you personally, because some of them are afraid of being judged by yourself or by any other person whom they are facing face to face. But the current chatbots have problem, and the problem is that they do not make allowance for the contextual responses, for the context in which the person is interacting with the robots. However, evidence suggests that chatbots are best used only as a supportive tool, and I quite agree with that, in the content of a broader treatment plan. Now, I will leave that Western perspective for 1 or 2 slides and come back to it. This is a review that was published in 2022, and it talks about the use or the availability through the internet, smartphone applications, and digital gaming. It talks about the AI interventions and therapy bots, specifically conversational applications that teach the user how to cope with problems. One example was the avatar therapy in schizophrenia. However, there are some problems. One of them is that the people who are using these applications, they might be slow in adopting these new methods, indicating a slow diffusion innovation. For example, elderly people like ourselves, we might not go with the same pace as young people do by using these applications, which are fast growing. However, another problem is also the problem of risk assessment. Sometimes the disaster or the catastrophe occurred before we can realize the risk that happens to the patients that we are dealing with by using artificial intelligence. Future work should be directed towards investigating efficacy of AI-based interventions in large controlled trials and methods for incorporating AI into clinical practice. The other application is virtual reality. And of course, everybody knows that this is an interactive computer simulated environment via a headset. But of course, it lacks the real world validity, and there is over-reliance on subjective ratings. Controlled exposure to anxiety-inducing stimuli within a virtual environment offers a safe, convenient, and accessible medium to deliver exposure-based behavioral treatment. Exposure, and this is very important and practical point, it reduces paranoia in people with psychosis. Right. Now, I don't know what happened to this. Yes. Now, regarding special aspects, yes, that's it. It is helpful to learn therapeutic skills such as mindfulness, relaxation, and self-compassion. And the technology is not very familiar and inaccessible to many users, which is regarded as a challenge to implementation. Now, certain practical aspects of artificial intelligence, special issues, one of them is self-management of depression and anxiety. It was found that it is accessible, scalable, and low cost. And it is particularly useful to non-clinical populations. That's to say, the people who come to us, they are not patients, but they tell us that I've got this symptom and that symptom. So this is useful for that case. However, for clinical management of major depressive disorders, it is useful, and it provides important real-time information reflecting the psychopathological status of patients with major mood disorders. And smartphones are used for monitoring and treatment of clinical samples with bipolar disorder and, of course, major depressive disorder. Regarding psychosis and schizophrenia, it is useful for monitoring and delivering interventions and support for psychosis. Digital health technology can improve symptoms as well as cognitive and other clinical outcomes. There are very few examples of successful implementation. This is a criticism to the digital health technology. For eating disorders, it is useful and leads to responses. But really, the authors of this article think that we need more papers and more research on the practical applicability of this subject. As far as child and adolescent mental health is concerned, most of the studies that were reviewed by this author and his group, they were really done by adults, and they are recommended for children. And this is not a good practice. They recommend that these subjects or these papers should be repeated on children themselves. The cohort of the research should be the children themselves, and then we can say it is useful on those people. That was the Western perspective. Now I will go to the Eastern perspective. It's from India, but it really represents the whole of the East regarding this subject or this issue. In India, in medicine, AI is used widely, but specifically in the branches of ophthalmology, oncology, and radiology. However, the use in mental health is restricted, so it is the same as we think. And because mental health relies on softer skills like rapport building, forming relationships with patients, and observing patients' emotions and behavior, this is one of the reasons why in mental health it is restricted to a certain extent. And most of the data in mental health is more subjective and qualitative, like patient statements and written notes. But still, mental health has a lot to benefit from artificial intelligence. It is useful sometimes for pre-diagnostic screening tools and risk models. That's to say, before the patient is diagnosed, we can have certain indicators that this patient or that group of patients will develop this condition. Also, prediction of basal metabolic index from negative affectivity has been used by machine learning algorithms. And in one of the places, it's called virtual psych-review. And of course, it helps patients to identify their emotions and thought patterns and to learn skills such as resilience or methods to reduce anxiety. So it is very helpful, even in psychotherapy. Even WhatsApp is used for these conditions by addressing anxiety and depression. In psychotic disorders, again in the Indian perspective, of course, there is disordered language production. So it is useful to analyze speech samples and discover the problems that those people are having. Algorithms could localize where in speech sample incoherence occurred. And of course, it was found to be sensitive to very subtle deviations in lengthy clinical interviews. Avatars have been successfully used in the treatment of schizophrenia to improve medication adherence. Virtual reality therapy has helped improvement of symptoms like visual and auditory hallucinations. Okay, now for child and adolescent disorder, this is according to the Indian perspective. The other one that I talked about was the Western one. They think that robotherapy is useful, especially in ASD, because in ASD, they relate to inanimate objects more than us as human beings. Therefore, they find it very useful, and those children or those persons with ASD, they respond with social behavior towards robots more than towards human beings. For geriatric psychiatry, people like myself, and maybe Dr. Walid, if he accepts this from me, they work as companion bots. And as you know, one of the problems that geriatric population are suffering from, not like us professionals, but general people, is loneliness, isolation, and they are sometimes disliked by their social contacts. Therefore, these robots are very useful for geriatric population, and sometimes the geriatric population become dependent on them, and they reduce stress and agitation. For addiction psychiatry, these are used as conversational agent, and they can improve engagement in digitalized mental health. The research on education delivery have found that text-based conversational agents are very useful. Now, for sleep disorders, it's very useful for older people, and also older people with balanced daily activities have been seen to have lesser disturbance of sleep-wake cycle among them. Now, overall, the Indian perspective believes that research has boosted in the recent decades where artificial intelligence have been used for diagnosis and classification of schizophrenia based on EEG and for assessment of cognitive and functional impairment. Artificial intelligence have been used to find potential markers like retinal vascular changes in patients of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. So this is really a step forward in the field of scientific part of psychiatry. What are, according to the Indian perspective, what are the advantages of artificial intelligence? Of course, I mentioned that before. Patients find benefit from relating to a robot rather than fear of being judged. Also, you can access remote geographical areas by artificial intelligence, and it assists to lower overall healthcare costs, so it is cost effective. And even in the process of triage-like system is very helpful. It could be tailored so that the least resource utilizing care is given to most people first, and more intensive care is provided to patients that need it needed the most. Also, another advantage is that we are all human beings, and when we are dealing with our patients, sometimes we might make certain mistakes. We might not be in the mood that day. We might be distracted by certain problems. This is a machine. It doesn't have that problem. This machine will only concentrate on the patient without distractions. Another good thing is that the machines are equipped to convey the most suitable treatments or coordinate various methodologies based on a patient's diagnostic profile inclinations. By the way, a few days ago or a few weeks ago, I was on one of the televisions in my country, and there was an artificial intelligence person or IT specialist person with me, and she was stressing the fact that by artificial intelligence, we can produce machines that are much more intelligent than us, and they will really take over us take us over while they are where we are teaching these machines. So sometimes they are risky. Anyway, but what are the drawbacks of artificial intelligence from the Indian perspective? It could be sometimes inapplicable and outside of the training domain. There might be bias and brittleness, so not everybody could be trained on it. Also, our mental health relies on softer skills. We mentioned that before, and by that, the patient emotions and behavior might not be assessed, and these are obstacles. Also, I mean, when we deal with our patients, we change the direction of our thoughts, our talks with the patient according to the emotions of the patient. In machines, there is lack of empathy and compassion, which are crucial. That's why I think the patients with suicidal thoughts, we should be very careful. This is what I was talking about at the beginning. Another thing, sorry, something happened. I have to go back. Oh, just a minute. Yes, that's it. Right. Another thing is that patients could get addicted and over-attached on artificial machine robots. And also there is lack of privacy, especially with social media. Sometimes, as I said, people might get into trouble with that. Another thing in social media is that once you post the thing, and once you write the thing, and once you talk, you cannot go back. There is no back. Anyway, also there are no guidelines for use of these things. And the most important thing is, if we make a mistake, the patient has the right to sue us. But when this patient is dealing with a robot, who should he or she sue? This is another problem. And in a few years' time, maybe we should ask our parliaments, our Congress, etc., to create laws for these machines. Right. Another drawback is that most of the literature which was published and most of the research which was done on artificial machines and technology were really published by people who are making these machines. So, of course, you can imagine the bias in using these papers or in publishing these papers. Unless a third party publishes papers, we cannot depend on these results of the AI researchers, right? I said we have a very new subject, which is called artificial wisdom. It was referred to by the Indian paper only here that we should concentrate on artificial wisdom rather than on intelligence. And I will not go into details about it right now, because in a few slides later, I will mention it in detail. Now, conclusion of the Indian perspective is that the AI framework can be set to aid in making the current medical treatment more efficient and accessible. And this is what I said at the beginning of my presentation: a collaboration of mental health care professionals, ethicists, technologists, engineers, healthcare administrators, entrepreneurs, and others is required in order to accomplish the full potential of AI and to address the challenges in its applications so that it rightly serves the mankind. Now, that's the end of that Indian perspective. This is a review from 28 studies published in 2021. It says, of course, studies about artificial intelligence. Collectively, these studies revealed high accuracies and provided excellent examples of AI's potential in mental health care. But most should be considered early proof concept works demonstrating the potential of using machine learning algorithms to address mental health questions and which types of algorithms yield best performance. So we are still not there yet completely. And the AI techniques continue to be refined and improved daily. It will be possible to help mental health practitioners redefine illnesses more objectively and identify illnesses, as was mentioned in DSM-5 and ICD, at an earlier or prodromal stage when the interventions may be more effective. Also personalize the treatments, and they bridge the gap between artificial intelligence in mental health research and clinical care. As you know, we have research and we have care. Right. Also, this review talks about this is useful for communication and collaboration between all the stakeholders and researchers and practitioners vested in improving mental health care. We must take an active role in informing the introduction of AI into clinical care by lending our clinical expertise and collaborating with data and computational scientists. Now, with AI, by the way, we will not be the only stakeholders. We should really liaise with IT people, with engineers, with entrepreneurs, with all types of people to give the best services to the population. Now, I promise that I will talk about artificial wisdom. This is an article in 2022, September, by Lee et al., talks about this subject. It says that while AI could help redefine mental illnesses more objectively, identify them at a prodromal stage, personalize treatment, and empower patients in their own care, it must address issues of bias, privacy, transparency, and other ethical concerns. These are all challenges to artificial intelligence. Thus, the future AI or artificial wisdom could provide technology that enables more compassionate and ethically sound care to diverse group of people. Today's AI can accomplish various concrete tasks for more quickly than a human. As I said, they are more intelligent than us through replicating discrete human intelligence skills and so on. AI will continue to improve and develop into super intelligence. We don't want super intelligence because it will be a problem. One day we will have a challenge with super intelligence. Reframing such future artificial intelligence for what it really is, artificial wisdom highlights the limitations of today's artificial intelligence and the need for wisdom it should offer in the future. The notion of creating artificial intelligence that shares our societal values and could be considered to be wise is already a new area of exploration. It is improbable that human wisdom could be fully programmed into a robot. However, it is useful for robotic social workers and physical therapists deployed in nursing homes, social robots for loneliness, and those providing cognitive assistance to older people. Ethical and wise AI or AW will help promote individual and societal well-being. Therefore, evolution of artificial wisdom will require active collaboration, as I said before, between computer scientists, engineers, psychiatrists, psychologists, neuroscientists, and ethicists. Sorry. Right. Therefore, it is not intelligence, but wisdom that is associated with greater well-being, and of course, longevity. And therefore, the future need in technology is for artificial wisdom, and this will also serve to mitigate the risks of advanced artificial intelligence, such as super intelligence. Now, wisdom is best defined as a uniquely human complex trait that includes several specific components, which includes emotional regulation, pro-social behavior, self-reflection, diversity of perspectives, and social advising. This is good news for us elderly people. While wisdom is potentially more modifiable than IQ. Unlike IQ, wisdom may increase with age and experience. Therefore, technologies of future will require new conceptual and computational models based on human wisdom rather than on artificial intelligence alone. A long-term transdisciplinary collaboration is essential for the development of artificial wisdom. I will, for the sake of time, skip these 2 or 3 slides about digital gaming because I want to leave time for the discussion. And I will go to this subject, which is artificial intelligence in mental health and biases of language-based models. You see, artificial intelligence is mostly developed by Western people, and they have their own cultures and their own language. They don't, I mean, if you want it to be successful, you should respect religion, race, gender, and nationality. Therefore, for application of NLP in mental health, this requires a rigorous assessment of the differences in our existing language expression. Also, AI provides us with opportunity to reflect on existing medical dogma, unpack it, and build new models that will improve the future care of our patients. The subject of precision psychiatry, which is part of precision medicine, is relatively new and it is very important. And in a few years' time, it becomes available. Now it is very expensive. Therefore, it will become available in the future and it will be very useful. It depends on the pharmacogenomics. And as you know, nowadays, you can specialize the treatment or personalized treatment for each person depending on the genomic structure of that person. Therefore, by the process of precision medicine and precision psychiatry, you can give the appropriate dose, appropriate medication to the right person by that. And pharmacogenomics is sometimes used interchangeably with precision medicine. It affirms to provide novel diagnostic and therapeutic approaches for treatment prediction, prognosis prediction, diagnosis prediction, and detection of potential biomarkers in an individual-specific and treatment-specific manner. Therefore, it depends on the gene-environment interaction and epigenetics. In the next generation, the pre-treatment prediction tests involving artificial intelligence and machine learning-based precision psychiatry and pharmacogenomics would become a reality in individual-specific clinical care when prospective large-scale studies are available or able to assess thoroughly the related biomarkers as well as clinical factors. This is used as an article or a research on people recovering from cancer, and they used artificial intelligence to help those patients, and it is done without direct access to the user's personal data. It's called FAITH study. Here, another application is for the process of flow of the patients. I talked about triage, so patient's flow is also useful. The literature review of AI in mental health revealed that AI could be used for improving diagnostic accuracy, personalization of treatment, and predicting clinical outcomes to ensure timely delivery of interventions. So it has a practical value. Therefore, it is useful, and it avoids readmissions. It helps improving care efficiency, optimizing resource allocation, reducing length of stay, and validating existing algorithms for more generalized purposes. It is useful for important aspects such as patient's experience, clinical significance, and ethical consideration that requires further studies and evaluation. Now, in this study called AFFECT, it was also useful for psychotherapy, for cognitive therapy, for treatment, and for training of people who are working in this field, including training, supervision, and quality assurance. I will skip this one also. Now, the findings of this review indicate general acceptance and interest in artificial intelligence informed mental health applications by young persons and experts working in routine practice of mental health promotions and prevention in this field of mental health. Now, in this research, it talks about what is the scope of this artificial intelligence. The mobile apps investigated incorporated different artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques for a variety of purposes, risk prediction, classification, and personalization, and aimed to address a wide range of mental health needs. These are the things. Overall, the studies demonstrated the feasibility of using AI to support mental health apps. But the early stages of the research and weaknesses in the study designs highlights the need for more research into artificial intelligence and machine learning enabled mental health apps and stronger evidence for their effectiveness. Now, for geriatrics, as I said, it was applied. It was found to be useful, especially for people who are suffering from loneliness. It is useful for people who are suffering from cognitive impairment, but This review says, until clinicians join forces with few scientists, engineers, and developers, and until such technology addresses the pragmatic concerns that clinicians and patients face, we will only scratch the surface of such potential for these technologies. Here, one major concern shared across the studied reviews in the potential to build biased models based on non-representative samples. Older adults are at high risk for exclusion. They think that they are not familiar with the technology, therefore they will be excluded. Even from research, they were not used as population for research. In fact, this review says that no elderly people can use technology if they are properly trained for that purpose. Okay. Now, this paper talks about 791 psychiatrists from 22 different countries. They were asked about the future of psychiatry within artificial intelligence. I said in Hollywood, they think that artificial intelligence is going to make them bankrupt, so they want it to be banned. Now, in psychiatry, only 3.8% of the respondents felt it was likely that future technology would make their jobs obsolete, but only 17% felt that future artificial intelligence and machine learning was likely to replace a human clinician. Well, I think the best thing to say, the best answer is that in the future, artificial technology will take a large part of our job, but it cannot work without us. And we should all work with the artificial intelligence to provide the best services for our patients. And that study, where 721 psychiatrists, was published twice by two different people in two different places. The first one, I gave you the results. For this publisher, they think overwhelmingly psychiatrists were skeptical that technology could replace human empathy. Now, many predicted in this study, that man and machine would increasingly collaborate in undertaking clinical decisions, with mixed opinions that the benefits and harms of such an arrangement. Participants were optimistic that technology might improve efficiencies and access to care and reduce costs. Ethical and regulatory considerations received limited attention, but this is one of the challenges to artificial intelligence, the subject of ethics. Okay, so artificial intelligence developed an access to the resources. It was helpful. And at the end, I just want to mention that one of the problems with chatbots, especially ChatGPT, that I heard about this morning while I was listening to one of the space channels, it was talking in Arabic. I'll mention it in Arabic. يعتقدون بأنه الشات بوت sometimes ما عندهم معلومات كاملة عن الموضوع، فلما تسأله عن الموضوع إذا ماكو ريفرنس كاملة، فالشات بوت اللي يجاوبك الروبوت راح ينطيك معلومات خاطئة يجيبها من كيفه. هذه هم سموها hallucinations. يعني واحدة من التشالنجز مال الشات بوتس especially ChatGPT هي الهالوسينيشنز اللي تشبه falsification of memory that occurs in Korsakoff psychosis, الfabrication اللي يصير in Korsakoff psychosis. يعني it gives you bad results. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope it was useful, and I am ready for the discussion. Thank you very much.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور نزار على هذه المحاضرة الرائعة. الحقيقة موضوع شيق، وأظن إنه إحنا مجتمعين بنحكي عن الارتفيشال انتليجنس. ما أظنش الارتفيشال انتليجنس بإمكانهم يجتمعوا ويحكوا عنها.
This is good.
فبالتالي لازلنا إحنا اللي اخترعناه وإحنا اللي بنقوده. If you please, can you clarify avatar therapy in schizophrenia?
Yes, when they use faces and so on, and use robots, and sometimes schizophrenics feel more comfortable dealing with these things, that will help them stick by the treatments and also obey the recommendations of the psychiatrists and of course other mental health team members that are helping them.
نعم. دكتور مروان.
شكرا دكتور نزار على العرض الشامل هذا والشيق والهيك عميق. أنا في بداية تحسسي لهذا الموضوع هيك الإشي الأساسي اللي أنا حاسه هو يعني قلق وغموض، ومش عارف هذا المشروع لوين راح ياخذنا. بس في البداية خلينا نميز بين كل السوشيال ميديا اللي تطورت وبين الاي اي الارتفيشال انتليجنس. السوشيال ميديا يعني الفيسبوك والتويتر والواتساب، كل هالشغلات هاي امور اللي يسرت التواصل وسرعته، وفي نفس الوقت قلبت العلاقات الاجتماعية. العلاقات الأسرية اليوم مش نفس العلاقات الاجتماعية مش نفس الشيء، بس قادرين نعيش مع هذا. الارتفيشال انتليجنس انك انت تاخذ معلومات من مصدر من روبوت، هنا في يعني إشي اللي هو أكبر بكتير من السوشيال ميديا. يعني لما المعلومات بتصير موجودة في الارتفيشال انتليجنس، هذا بهدد كل المهن، بالذات العلوم التطبيقية. يعني أنت بتبطل بحاجة لمحامي ولا بحاجة لمهندس. أنا بعرف إنه ممكن شخص ينزل خرائط هندسية، بتقدر تطلب بدي جامع في حجم معين، مواصفات معينة، حسب ستايل معين، بنزل لك عدة مخططات لجوامع. فممكن يستبدل محامي، مهندسين، أطباء، مستشارين. وهنا بيجي السؤال، طب شو فائدة العلم؟ يعني الجيل اللي طالع ليش يتعلم؟ ما هو كله موجود. وليش احنا نتوجه لخبراء وندفع مصاري ما كله موجود؟ بنروح لتشات جي بي تي او اي تشات تاني، نسأل السؤال ونطلب الطلب اللي بدنا اياه وبناخده. فهنا في عملية تقويض لكل المبنى الاقتصادي والاجتماعي اللي هو مخيف في انه يعني كل المبنى اللي احنا نعرفه، كل النمط اللي احنا متعودين عليه بده ينقلب. والسؤال، هل راح ينقلب للأحسن للأسرع، ولا راح نقلب لانه نفقد السيطره؟ وهنا بتيجي اهميه انت ذكرت دكتور نزار اهميه التشريعات، اهميه الضبط الاخلاقي لكل التطور هذا. لان هذا التطور ممكن يمشي في اتجاه اللي يخرب العالم. انا بدي احكي عن تجربه شخصيه اللي لما بديت اتعرف على تشات جي بي تي ذهلت منه وبهرت في قدراته. سألته كثير أسئلة في معلومات من مجالي، يعني مجال علم النفس، كيف بنشخص سكيزوفرينيا، كيف ممكن نعالج أنوركسيا وكذا. بعطي معلومات كثير امبرسيف، كثير امبرسيف ولطيف. يعني بتجاوب بدماثي وبلطف، وكمان مبدع. يعني في أحد المرات كنت أنا وزوجتي، زوجتي بتقول له بدي أكتب شعر بمناسبة عيد ميلاد زوجي، تقدر تقترح لي شعر؟ بعت لها شعر. قالت له انه انا بدي اشي شخصي مش هيك عام. قال لها اعطيني مواصفاته. قلت لها قولي له انه زوجي عنيف. جاوبها، اذا زوجك عنيف وسعيد ميلاده يعني لسه مش وقته تحكي على العنف، ممكن تجيبي له اياها بطريقه انه يعني انت مرات بتنرفز، مرات بتغضب، مرات كذا، بدي نتفاهم. يعني في عنده كمان شو بدي اسميها، قدره على الحكم، مش بس بزت معلومات. فهو مبدع وعنده معلومات واسعه وقادر على الحكم ولطيف وكله. بس بالاخر تبين انه في قسم من المعلومات اللي بعطيها زي ما قلت الدكتور نزار ولا إلها اساس في الواقع. فهو مدعي، يعني كانه بيعرفش يقول بعرفش. يعني اذا بتساله سؤال بعطيك بستفيض في المعلومات، ممكن يعطيك ريفرنسز اللي هي مش موجوده. هذا واحد. الشيء الثاني، من بعد ما هيك جربنا وعملنا جولة فيه، أنا قررت أسأله عن الشيء اللي أنا بعرفه على أساس أتأكد من مصداقية. وكل له، هل تعرف شخص اسمه مروان دويري؟ كلها طبعا بعرفه، هو كاتب جزائري كاتب 10 كتب، حط لي 10 اسماء لكتب ولا بعرفهم. بقول له لا، على علمي انه مروان دويري هو سايكولوجيست، كتب كتاب From Psychoanalysis to Cultural Analysis. تعرف هذا الكتاب؟ قال اه بعرف. تقدر تعطيني الملخص تبعه؟ كتب شيء ولا خصه في الكتاب، خصه من العنوان اخذه وفصله وكتب فقرة طويلة عن الكتاب ولا خصه بالكتاب. يعني رأيي انه على الاقل في الوضع الحالي المعلومات اللي بعطيها هي مش موثوقة وهو مدعي، الواحد لازم يحذر كثير. بالمناسبة قبل كم يوم قعدت سألته بتعرف مروان دويري؟ قال لي لا، أنا أسماء شخصية ما أقدرش أجاوب عليها. هو بتعلم.
على بناء على نفس السؤال أنا سألته عني، طلب توضيح، قلت له طبيب نفسي، فجاوبني نعم طبيب نفسي معروف في الأردن، وبدأ يعطي مؤهلات غريبة، حاصل على ماجستير مش عارف من وين، على دكتوراه مش عارف من وين. يعني المعلومات ما كانت، بس يعني وجاوب إنه طبيب نفسي بالأردن. فوجدت بهذا الجزء سؤاله عن أشخاص ما كان يكون دقيق. يعني حتى لما بتسألوا عن رؤساء دول، لكن لما تسألوا عن مواضيع علمية مثلا what are the principles of good mental health service، بتشوف إجابة منسقة يعني بشكل حلو ولطيف، وقد يعني ما تكون فيها شيء إضافي، لكن اللي ممكن إذا أنت كتبتها مثلا تأخذ معك وقت، هو بيعملها بثواني. ف يعني أعتقد أنه إحنا لسه في بداية الطريق، سيكون هناك الكثير من التطوير. دكتور أمين.
قبل ما تعطي المجال الأستاذ دكتور أمين حيحي، إذا يسمح لي بس أضيف على هالموضوع. There was an article a few days ago I read from the JAMA network. Nowadays they are warning every person who submits an article, he should mention whether he got it from an artificial intelligence or not. هاي وحدة. الأكبر من عندها even reviewers of the as you know all of the articles will be sent to reviewers. The reviewer himself also should mention whether he took this review from artificial intelligence or not, and what source of artificial intelligence. آسف العفو أستاذ أمين، تفضل.
مساء الخير للجميع. الدكتور نزار، أنا في عندي نقطة. خلال الكوفيد طبعا زي ما بتعرفوا حضراتكم كنا نستخدم الديجيتال في حكاية الأسسمنتس، ففي مرت فترات إنه كنا نعمل ديتنشن للمرضى مشان يدخلوا المستشفى كومبالسري يعني. فبعد فترة اللي صار إنه Department of Health والMental Health Act Office في UK rejected all these referrals و identified إنه لازم يكون face-to-face assessment. طبعا هذا برجعنا لحكاية اللي تقدمت فيها حضرتك، يعني إنه حكاية الديجيتال لما توصل لمرحلة بدك تاخذ ديسيجن عن إنسان آخر، خاصة في موضوع إنك يعني تحاصر الليبرتي تبعته، موضوع الديجيتال بتصير عملية رقمية وغير معقولة يعني. فبالتالي كل هاي الريفيرالز ريجكتد، ورجعت من البداية نستخدم حكاية إنه لازم يكونوا حتى في خلال يعني موضوع الكوفيد كان منتشر في 2021 يعني كنا نعملها فيس تو فيس، نروح نشوف المرضى ونعمل. النقطة الثانية اللي بحب أحكي معك فيها يعني حكاية الريسك أسسمنت. زي ما تفضلت، احنا بنعرف إنه في السايكوسيس يعني الريسك أسسمنت it's dynamic based on daily kind of assessments على الثوتس والبيهيفير والمود. كل هاي الأمور يعني بتجبرنا إن نشوف المريض. ما بنقدر إنه إحنا يعني نعمل هذا الأسسمنت ديجيتال أو أونلاين without يعني taking in consideration the seriousness of the risk. أنا بشتغل مع تيم اللي هو الفيرست ابيسود سايكوسيس. في عنا فترات يعني خاصة في الCBT بيعملوها ديجيتال وناجحة جدا. يعني أنا أعتقد إنه موضوع الثيرابي في خلال الديجيتال بتجيب أوتكم كويس جدا، ولكن لما توصل لمرحلة إنه السايكاتريك أسسمنت I believe يعني needs to be face to face. شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا. I think you are right, and I think during the COVID, tribunals were also conducted online, as you know, and maybe you are referring to some of these results of these tribunals.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
In publication now, there are many journals added the AI that you could submit papers with reference in one of the reference could be AI, and one paper was published by AI. The author was AI, and many other papers was co-author. And one of our colleagues here in Amman, he's an engineer, IT engineer. He published a paper on recognition of glaucoma without any physician. He had retinal images from the ophthalmologist and asked the AI to read it, separate it, which one is having glaucoma and which is not, and published that and accepted in a very important ophthalmology journal. And it says clearly that no physician was included in the study, only done by artificial intelligence. So I think in research, there will be more and more things coming, and definitely that will be very important in developing research and research methodology. One of our colleagues here in Amman is actually presented a course on doing paper from A to Z through artificial intelligence, asking the AI, I would like to do this randomized controlled study. How many patients I need? Which methodology do you prefer? What's the minimal number of patients I need? And then following that, references are provided. And then after doing the research, going back to AI, submitting the research for statistical analysis, as well as conclusion and drawbacks, etc. It's fascinating, but it's definitely need a lot of expertise, that there are certain AI websites and applications that are specifically intended for this purpose, that they do help in research A to Z, which would be of great importance, I believe. Okay, Rwishat Rashid.
Rawsht. Rawsht, unmute yourself, please. Rawsht, unmute yourself. You are mute.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nazar. I didn't want to bother you with my I mean, the voice of surrounding. That's why I was muting myself. Thank you very much for this interesting subject. Actually, it's very, very interesting. And it made me, for a while, stopping my car aside because I was on my way to my house from the clinic. Fortunately, I reached home soon. Then I can join this comment, actually. Thank you very much again. As usual, active and young. Because this subject is very, very interesting, and it's a very new subject, actually. I was suspecting some young people, I'm sorry, I'm saying young, I mean biologically young, to deal with this subject and to bring us some information, because it's very up to date and people are nowadays are very busy with this topic. Thank you very much again for raising this subject. And again, you prove that you are younger than us.
Thank you.
Dr. Nazar, I mean, as far as I am afraid of AI. I'm not happy with it. My fears are so much because we are going to enter the era of AI in all the aspects of life. Yes, it's true that AI might help a lot of people in terms of anxiety, depression, simple questions. And not only this, maybe even in future, if you have an aggressive person or patient, and because they are nowadays, they are using this in techniques of the gaming system. For example, there are a lot of sensors. If you are anxious and you are angry, then the machine can recognize this and will tell you that, please be quiet because I think you are angry, for example. So this technique might be helpful for even dealing with psychosis and aggression and violence in future. But my fears is that, as you mentioned in the research or the study that done in, I think it was in US, about the doctors, the psychiatrists, that they are afraid of the future of their work. So I'm not afraid of the future of my work, because at least it needs many years in the Middle East to face this problem. But what will be our role in future? What will be the role of psychiatrists in dealing with this? So my question to you, as a professional psychiatrist and experienced psychiatrist, that you have a lot of years of your age with psychiatry, what will be our role like a psychiatrist? What can we do? Do you think that people can, because there's a very important subject, Dr. Nazar, when we are saying that the AI cannot take the role of a human being, don't forget that human beings are changing nowadays. When I'm asking, for example, children now, how are you? They don't say, I am fine, thank you. How are you, uncle? No, they say, I'm fine, like a robot. So people are changing. Mentality of people is changing. So don't you think that the role of psychiatrists day by day will be less in this? And I'm afraid of that. I hope I don't live long to see this in the world, because I think it will be a catastrophe. And yes, we are talking about the benefits of AI, but I'm not so happy with that. So again, I'm repeating the question. What do you think that the psychiatrists will be? Yeah, you say that we have to coordinate with AI technicians, with engineers, with everybody to find a role for psychiatrists. But I don't think that they will, because as you mentioned, one of the research, there are a lot of fears that AI will control human beings. So we cannot control how to deal with AI. They will control and they will decide, AI will decide how we must contact and how we must work. I think I made it long. I'm sorry, but I hope that you got the question.
Okay, I got the question. Thank you, Dr. Rawsht, for your question. Well, the answer is two parts. The first part is what Dr. Walid correctly said at the beginning, that we are here now together discussing the artificial intelligence and the future of artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence cannot sit all together and discuss our future. That's one question, one answer. The second answer is, imagine yourself, you are riding a horse and you are holding, I don't know, اللغام أو الرشمة ما أعرف شو يسموها والله بالإنجليزي. You are holding this thing in your hands. Okay, the horse could run very fast and throw you on the floor, but if you have already trained the horse to obey your own demands by pulling this thing, I don't know, probably Dr. Amin will tell me what it is called, then you will be able to control the horse. I said super intelligence is a problem, but I also gave you hope, because I said in the near future there will be artificial wisdom rather than artificial intelligence. So that is really the answer to your question. We will be able to deal with the subject in an ethical way, and we will be able to control the subject ourselves. That is my answer to your question.
دكتورة صفية.
السلام عليكم. Thank you very much أستاذنا دكتور نزار على المحاضرة الرائعة كما وصفها أستاذ دكتور وليد. I have 3 comments. أول comments، حقيقة أحد قاربي هو طبيب في أمريكا، التقيت به قبل كم شهر ويتكلم عن artificial intelligence، فذكر أنه لربما يعني توقعات الناس اللي يشتغلون في هالمجال أنه أول التخصصات الطبية اللي لربما يعني نعتمد بشكل كامل على الارتفيشال انتليجنس هو تخصص الجلدية، وهكذا يبدأ العد التنازلي إلى أن يعني أعتقد إحنا سايكاتريست بعيدين إن شاء الله، لأن في اعتقادي الهارمونيك interaction between the center of emotion المتمثل mainly in limbic system والprefrontal cortex المركز الحكمة، هل يعني راح يصل في مرحلة الارتفيشال انتليجنس يعني يصير هذا الانتراكشن as in the human being؟ فأنا يعني أعتقد يعني لربما هذا صعب أن يتحقق. احنا نتعامل بالافكت اللي لا أعتقد أنه في يوم من الأيام راح يصنعون روبوت عنده هاي التعابير اللي the same as a human being. فإحنا يعني أهم شيء في الانتراكشن هو المقابلة الشخصية. صحيح كان هناك عيادات إلكترونية وغطت يعني جزء من المهام خلال فترة كورونا، لكن دائما المريض يحب أنه يكون مقابلة فيس تو فيس. الكومنت الثاني اللي هو يعني تأثير الارتفيشال انتليجنس على العلاقات الاجتماعية، هو يعني أول ما اكتشف لغرض توفير الوقت، فبالتالي يفترض أن يكون هناك وقت كافي للعلاقات الاجتماعية، وللأسف الآن أصبحت العلاقات الاجتماعية هي من خلال الارتفيشال انتليجنس، من خلال السوشيال ميديا. أحيانا أنا أمزح مع طلابي أقول لهم نحن في العالم الافتراضي والعالم الواقعي هو أصبح بالسوشيال ميديا. آخر كومنت في عملية التعلم، يعني أنا يعني كنا إحنا تلامذة، أعتقد حتى طلابنا في الوقت الحاضر، يعني أنا من أحب المادة الفلانية وأتعمق في دراستها، لأن أستاذي كان يقف أمامي ويعني أسلوب التدريس، فما أعتقد في يوم من الأيام راح يعني يتأثر الطالب بروبوت ويعني يدرس المادة لأجل هذا الروبوت. فيعني كما ذكرت أستاذنا فهو الارتفيشال وايز أكثر من ما هو الارتفيشال انتليجنس. ويعني أعتقد كان أكو فيلم يمكن في التسعينات هو حرب النجوم، كان البطل يمكن أرنولد، أنه الارتفيشال انتليجنس هو يعني يعمل حرب على البشر. فأعتقد إن شاء الله هذا الشيء لن يحصل، وما راح يعني أنا ما عندي هذا القلق. إن شاء الله يبقى العقل البشري هو إلى قيام الساعة هو المسيطر. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا على المحاضرة وعلى المشاركات، ولكن أنا تعقيبي الأخير هو أن يعني منذ العقود الماضية كل ما ظهر اكتشاف بداية من التلفزيون ثم التليفون ثم الموبايل ثم الإنترنت، فورا نبدأ نتحدث بمبدأ المنافسة، وكأن البشر ما اخترعوه سينافسهم وجودهم. هذا أعتقد يعني مش الأسلوب الصحيح لتقدم البشر. إحنا كل شيء يتم اختراعه هو لخدمة البشرية. بأنه الارتفيشال انتليجنس سيلغي مهنة أو يحل مع مهنة مكان مهنة، هذا دائما ينبع من انكزايتي، وأن كل واحد خايف على حاله. لكن أنا لا أعتقد أنه لا artificial intelligence ولا wisdom أو غيره سيؤدي إلى أنه الناس ما تتعلم أو أنه في منافسة أو الناس تخسر شغلها. على العكس، هو سيرفع من مستوى الأداء ومستوى التقديم، لأن إذا أنا كان في عندي فكرة الآن لموضوع واستعانت بالارتفيشال انتليجنس سيساعدني على تطوير الفكرة. إن الارتفيشال انتليجنس هو حيشخص ويعالج بدون وجود طبيب، يعني هذه فكرة شوية أجدها غريبة، لكن سيكون إضافة مهمة لما لدينا من أدوات لمساعدة المريض، قد تصلح مع بعض المرضى وقد لا تصلح مع آخرين، قد تصلح في بعض الحالات ولا تصلح في غيرها، وتكون غالبا داعمة لما نقدمه من علاج وليست بديلة عنه. هذا باعتقادي إن الوضع، ولا أعتقد إنه القصة إن نخاف ونقلق من كل تطور علمي. Artificial Intelligence بدأ منذ عقود، تبلور في السنوات الأخيرة وبدأ يأخذ حيز ويتطور كل يوم. وإذا فتحت على التليفون ستجد فيه 5000 تطبيق، لا نستطيع الهروب منها أو دحضها، ولكن يعني إحنا لابد نختبرها. يعني زي ما عمل الدكتور وان، وأنا في بعض الأحيان بقضي ساعة وأنا أعمل له تيستينج للارتفيشال انتليجنس في على تليفوني 6 أو 7 أنواع، وبسأل السؤال الستة وبقارنه، يعني بشغل وقتي فيه لأفهم أكثر. وكل يوم بتجد أنه يعني خلال ال6 شهور الماضية تطور جدا، وأتوقع خلال السنتين 3 القادمة سيستمر التطور. يعني من غير المتوقع أنه البشرية تعود للوراء. صحيح أن الأجيال الجديدة قد تكون أكثر استعمالا واستيعابا له، لكن يعني نحن من أجيال قديم ومستمتعين به ومستمتعين بمحاضرة الدكتور نزار، وأعتقد سنستمر في البحث والتقصي في هذا الموضوع إلى أجل غير مسمى. أستودعكم الله ونلقاكم بعد أسبوعين إن شاء الله. تصبحون على خير.
على خير.